Okay, welcome everybody to another episode.
We can let go of my head now.
Of the Three Wise Guys. I'm here with Dolapo. We are here for the 100th episode. And it's a very special one because for this 100th episode, as teased last time, I'd like to introduce our special guest, Kevin SPACEY.
Let's go, Kev. We got your back.
If it was not clear, that was a joke. And we due to our excellent podcast logistic planning skills, we didn't realize last episode was episode 99, and we have special plans for this episode. So we'll be bringing up that topic once our fellow co-host is back next week. But for the 100th episode, we wanted to do a little bit of a retrospective, like. A lot of you guys might have been with us since the very beginning, but then, tapered off with our posting schedules and stuff. So that'd be nice to kind of like recap the history of the podcast, how long things have gone. And then also we wanted to kind of go through our top 10 episodes and talk a little bit of shit, So, Dolapo. So episode 1 of the Three Wise Guys, if you remember.
Damn.
Let's actually look at when that was.
Yeah, I was going to say, you got to give me a date because at this point, I know we've been doing this for a while, even though we're just on episode 100. We've gone on like 6-month hiatuses, like 8-month hiatuses. So what date was that?
So episode 1 was December 15th, 2020.
Okay. Something important that I just instantly remembered about episode 1.
Yeah.
We recorded episode 1 October.
Yes, we did. Yeah,
we recorded episode 1 October, but we did not release it till December. I'll leave you and Arya to explain why. Because back then I was just talent and you guys were starting like a whole company and everything. So I remember this was 2020, the pandemic had just hit. Or the pandemic it was subsiding.
It didn't just hit. Like it hit like
this was the
12 months ago.
All right. Okay, semantic man over here is like, all right, when I say I just hit, okay, like if it didn't, all right, fuck it. I'm gonna gather my thoughts and speak slowly because I'm perplexed. Okay, that's what's going on. What would you say about the pandemic in 2024 then?
I mean, like it's kind of like the common cold now, right? It's like just another disease that people might get. Like one of my coworkers got COVID like a couple months ago. Like kind of is just like a general thing now, right? Like
okay, never mind. It's a mute point. Whatever. Okay, whatever. Pandemic hit March 2020.
Yep.
I remember school paused. We were doing virtual schooling, and September was the beginning of my 5th year. You guys, Luke and Arya, had graduated because they're smarter than me. And I was still in uni, and I remember we were really close right before like you guys left for exchange, and you were in Ottawa, and we wanted to just keep talking with each other and everything. And I remember you guys wanted to start My Kind.
Yes.
Which was what Three Wise Guys was a part of a bigger thing that Luke and Ari were starting called My Kind. And they approached me, and I was like, yeah, it's cool. I remember my only condition was I don't want to do anything other than speak. So, yeah, I was just like, yeah, I'm just here for the vibes and to like talk shit on a mic. And like, if you guys can handle everything, this is going to be a sweet partnership. and being my friends that understand my foolishness, they agreed. And I remember I came to Toronto in October.
Oh, yes, yeah.
We went to go try out foods. I forget the name of the Nigerian restaurant. Do you remember?
Was it Niger Jollof?
I think it was Niger Jollof. We went to go try out food. I remember I was very impressed. You guys had bought lights. You bought little mics, like microphones. We did. We all went there. We bought food. You guys brought your camera set up. Kind of talked to the lady a little bit. We came back home. We shot an episode in Arya's basement. I remember we also ate food that day in Arya's basement. It was like I remember that first shoot was just like really, really fun. It was my first time in Arya's mom's new place. It was just a great time. I don't remember what we talked about at all, but I just have very, very fond memories of that October and shooting that episode. I actually don't even remember what happened December 15th and why we actually released the episode on that day. But I just remember shooting the episode. What did they have? You have like a break for a week in uni. What's it called?
Reading week. Yeah.
Reading week. Yeah. It was during reading week. It was during reading week in
up.
October when I came to Toronto, and that's when the podcast episode was just shot. But yeah,
so
long story done.
I think the one thing is, first of all, I thought we were gonna go much more high level, but I do appreciate the granularity.
I warned you earlier.
That is true, because I think when our first episode, I don't think we actually shot until you got back to Ottawa, because in the very beginning, if I remember correctly, we were trying to use Discord. If you remember, we were using Discord to record, and it was interesting because we were using bots in channels to record, and that actually failed. I think at least twice.
2 or 3 times.
We tried
I remember that.
2 episodes, and both of those failed.
Yep.
And I think it was like over the course of a month where we eventually, like, we had to invest, and we had to look into different like platforms, and then we eventually we went for Riverside, and then we used Anchor to publish. Thank you, Davin, for the mix, the fix there.
Yeah. That's the OG wise guy right there.
I mean, it's crazy because, you know, one of the things always when I was listening to these earlier episodes, if you're like tuning into this podcast right now, like this quality is absolutely insane in comparison to what we used to do.
Fucking insane.
Like, mid episodes we just cut because like someone would drop off, or like I remember one of the notes I put together in my thing was like Dolapo was using his Mac mic, and it wasn't even this current Mac, it was like the older
MacBook Air from like 2015.
And you would have to like get the power thing on at the right angle for it to like charge or some shit. Like,
it was a struggle Mac
thing.
Dude. And I remember going to my buddy Farouk's house to go record because he had a mic, and you guys were like, I can't use my Mac mic anymore. But I had to go, like, I remember his house was like 40 minutes away from my house in Ottawa, and like I'd have to go 40 minutes to his house to go record a pod. But wow, such a long time. Dude, I was still a student in uni, man. Like, just struggling to finish my physics degree. I was struggling emphasis back then. But
so you were in school then. Since then, lots have happened. Give us kind of like the spark notes of it, you know?
Okay, spark notes version. I eventually graduated, which was awesome. Like a couple months later with my degree. Also got a job. Moved to Toronto in short order. And I'm pretty sure when we were recording that episode, I probably said some flagrant about never moving or never leaving Ottawa and never moving to Toronto. I used to talk really flagrant. I probably still do. So yeah, just beware. But yeah, I moved to Toronto in short order. Started my first job, lived alone, got an apartment downtown. I remember, and then, like, it was great. Like, lived in Toronto. And then since then, obviously moved in with you guys, left that job, started a new job. Back then as well, I thought I was probably going to be single till I was 30. I have since had a girlfriend for over 2 years. So yeah, yay love. Yeah, Davin is fist pumping for love. Yes, so yeah, but yeah, no, life has been great. Obviously, like, we live here, got a new job I'm excited about, relationship I'm really excited about, just in a great place. Back then, I don't think I knew anything. I didn't think I had the slightest idea what I was going to do with my life. So I'd say 0% of an idea back then. Now I'd give it 10%.
Okay.
Which is progress, positive.
It's like at an infinity times improvement if you think about it.
Honestly. So 10% more like, oh, this could possibly happen with my life. Still 90% unknown, but we're progressing. Hopefully we could get it to 10.5% at the end of the year. Okay. Which is in like 4 months. So yeah, it's big growth I'm hoping to come. But yeah, what about you? What was your life? What did your life look like in October to December 2020, and what does it look like now?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting because it's like I feel like it's almost like the second era of the podcast, because you're right, when we first started.
This is probably like the third era of the podcast.
But it's funny because you're like when we first started, you were like you want no responsibilities. Now you actually take a lot of responsibility, even outside of like the setup and things like that, from like an ideation standpoint. So even that growth is pretty interesting. But also, like, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, which you should, just to see Davin's amazing editing and filming work. But,
absolutely.
You'll actually notice there's like a ton of random content on that YouTube channel. We used to do cooking videos. We used to do food reviews like you were talking about. And honestly, like the quality isn't like crazy or anything, but I was not upset at it.
Yeah,
like,
no, it's
I went
always
back
great.
and I looked and I was like, honestly, for a couple of like uni kids that had no prior experience, like I'm pretty proud of us for doing that. And I think like our lives in general was a lot of that. It was kind of like we weren't exactly sure of what we were doing. We had a general idea. We kind of trusted ourselves. We took risks. Sometimes it was not fun and it didn't work out very well. But
Almost always lost money.
yeah, but you know, we learn and we grow.
And we didn't have money to lose too, which is funny.
Yeah, it's true, because when you think about it from an investment standpoint, man, like back then we were making so little money, and like, things like a Riverside membership, a yearly membership, which I think was $157 for the year at that time. Like that was, like, you know what I mean? It was a nothing back then.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
might
like,
have not been the best use of our money, but I'm glad we did it though. It was an investment into ourselves.
And I remember even when we first moved in here and we got these mics, like we had these mics. We didn't have the mic stands or anything like that, but like these mics too were like, we were like, ooh, like, you know,
$300.
Yeah, they were expensive mics and all that stuff, but yeah, like high level, you know, back then I think I was working at like some sketchy Chinese company. The way that ended was I was owed 2 months of wage, and he was like, "You can have 1 month, take it or leave it. I'm in China." I said, "I'll take it."
Of course.
He asked me to go to this convenience store where this guy gave me $2,000 in $20 bills, and I bust there. So I was very terrified, and I was in Scarborough, and like I was really scared of getting robbed on the way back.
You should see David's face.
From there, yeah, because I feel like my life is very well exemplified by the jobs I had. So I did that, and then I started working at Barra Tax Law.
Okay.
That was great. That was a really good like first.
You were
job experience.
working. You were working like 2 or 3 jobs at the same time.
So I was working at tax law,
don't try and clean it up.
and then I got a second job at a pet care startup.
Okay.
And I was doing both of those. And it was like one of those where it was my natural like laziness just like leaned into it. It wasn't like I probably was like, yeah, I'll quit. Like I'll send in my resignation. I just didn't. And then all of a sudden it was Monday and I was supposed to do both jobs. And then I just started doing it. And then like, I was like, okay, it's fine. And then I went to work at Jump Factor, my last agency, which was like a genuinely super, super great learning experience.
How long in between pet care and tax law before
I want to
Jump
say
Factor?
a year, like about in totality. And then I was at Jump Factor maybe less than a year, like maybe 8 months. And then I interviewed for Jump Factor the day we were shooting. Not the dating coach episode, but we were in Ottawa when I was interviewing for Jump Factor.
Oh, really? Okay.
I remember I went to your room and I was like, I had like my interview call there. And then that was like a year and a bit. And then during that time, we actually moved here.
That was when I didn't have did I have a bed frame back then?
Ooh.
That's funny. I just remember like when we started this pod, I probably didn't. But like that's by the wayside.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
But I think we had like we had a spare that you ended up taking after and moved out, no?
No. I got one. I bought one like during the pandemic. But keep going. That was just because you said you interviewed in my room.
No, but yeah, like all this to say, you know, in the past, I mean, 2020 is 2024, so I guess it has been 4 years. Like moved out, changed multiple jobs, in a long-term relationship now. One of the things I noticed about myself listening to these episodes was I had some very questionable takes, man. Genuinely.
So did I.
And you know what's crazy? I know for a fact I'm going to look back on this in the future and be like, Jesus Christ, like, what are you saying?
Absolutely. If you don't do that, then like what's the progress you're making in life?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Are you improving? Are you getting better? Are you growing?
I just want to say this before we get to the actual like 10 episode retrospectives. If you're listening to any of the previous episodes and you dislike my takes or you're cringing or you think like they're awful takes, I promise you when I re-listen to them, I had the exact same feeling times like 10. So yeah. I just want you to know you will not hate me more than I hate myself.
I absolutely want to co-sign what Luke just said. I'm looking directly into my camera. Okay. There's a lot of things that I said that I do not stand by anymore. Okay. And there's a lot of things that I said that I do 1,000% still stand by. You figure out which ones are which.
Okay, we haven't gotten away from the spiritual sage leader vibe that you give. That's fine. So Anyway, we'll look at what we kind of wanted to do today was like review the top 10 episodes of our podcast. And not to brag, but our number one episode has like 68 listens. Like, that's 68 whole people.
Of course.
I think like throughout this it's a pretty interesting retrospective, but our most listened to episode, starting with that, is episode 7. So that is titled Open Communication and Women's Expectations, featuring Chick Chat. So Dolapo, what do you think we discussed during that episode? So for context, listeners, I spent the last week listening to the top 10 episodes. So I'm gonna like kind of like bounce through things with D, because I honestly like some of the things we talked about during these episodes surprised me, like genuinely.
Oh man. Dude, okay. Shout out Chick Chat. I wonder where they are now. I wonder if they're still podcasting. Maybe we should do a Chick Chat part 2. That would be fun. But I remember, we're a podcast of 3 guys. They were a podcast of 3 girls. And my most vivid memory from that conversation was me making a comment about how a woman's body part reacts to having multiple sexual partners. And you can tell that I am wording this as an adult now. and when you listen to that podcast, that is what I meant, but this is not how I said it. Ooh. And all I know is I got educated. Okay. And it was a very, very stupid opinion. And if you want to get educated and not have dumb thoughts as a man, you should probably go listen to that episode and listen to what the girls had to say. But other than that, I remember finding them really cool. I think they were all like friends. Like I think they kind of all went to uni together or something like that. So they were like in a bit of a similar situation as us. I remember they were also moving. I think 2 of them lived together, and one of them was helping their friend move. So like I just remember talking through all of that. But that was a fun episode. Yeah, I do. That was an interesting topic. Some other highlights of that topic is us basically asking about like why is it that women judge men on height but men are not allowed to judge women on weight. We also talked about like wait, pause. We talked like about that was a topic. And then I think how did that go? It went, honestly, like, I think the interesting thing about that episode was actually genuinely early on, we were pretty well spoken for our age, I guess. Okay. Like, I thought in some cases we actually took more care and liberties than maybe in some of the later episodes, which is kind of ironic. But I think it's very much to do with like our guests, right? Yeah, like, they were very reasonable and they were open to discussing, and it was a productive dialogue. We also talked about like the term like all men are trash, and like kind of like even going it from a linguistic standpoint, where like that's a very broadly targeted statement. I remember that was a hill you wanted to die on for like about a year. And then they were kind of going through how like, well, when you think about, even from that standpoint, like when you think about language in general, there's much more slurs that are kind of pointed towards, femininity, not women specifically, but femininity. And like, so even from that standpoint, like, I don't know, it was an interesting conversation. But the one thing I kind of took down as a key takeaway was, and I thought this was really interesting, is like a lot of gender roles are kind of created and lived in the family. So it's like, I remember someone was talking about the grandmother and how like a very traditional like grandmother will kind of push you towards those type of things. And like, I think that's very interesting because a lot of times like we think about it from a societal standpoint, but obviously the family has much more impact than like society as a whole, right? But that's actually a great point. Like now I do remember one of the girls like specifically talking, I think it was like an Italian grandma. Yeah, wow. All of this is coming back to me as you start talking. The memory is just incredible, right? Because I've never thought about this, but I remember her talking about it and how her grandma like kind of cooks for the whole family, and she didn't know how to boil pasta with salt or something like that, and like it was crazy, and just kind of how like her grandma places a lot of emphasis on that, and she doesn't necessarily. And it's just kind of interesting to think about, just how much that pressure comes from the family, from within, and from female members of the family. Yeah, like you get what I mean. As opposed to, don't get me wrong, the patriarchy has a huge role to play in that for sure. But like just seeing that like manifest in a woman's life, that was just really interesting. Great perspective, and just that question on weight and height. I'm like, wow, I can't believe we asked that. Great question. Honestly, I'd love to. I might ask my girlfriend that if she's in a good mood.
Well, it's like I think like the main thing like I think we got from that episode is like something that they was pretty clearly pointed out was like if someone says something and you're very offended by it, it probably like says more about you than them. Anyway, cool. So that was our most listened to episode. Unfortunately, I believe Chick Chat is not, kicking anymore. And
is that verified? Did you check? Or
I
you
did,
just
yeah.
assuming? Oh,
well, at least according to their socials, their last post was 2022. And I don't think they have posted an episode since around the same time. So, we continue on. We carry forward their legacy.
Oh yeah. Shout out to us for keeping the train going.
Cool. So episode 4, this was creativity in different fields featuring
Mr. Sway.
Mr. Sway. And yeah, what do you think was the discussion topic there?
Okay, a couple of things. And this is going to happen every time we bring up a topic. So please, Davin, Luke, keep me honest because I'm the rambler. But we've had Mr. Sway a couple of times.
Yes.
Shout out to Mr. Sway. We should have him back again. And we should talk more about him as an accountant this time. Yeah. Which would be interesting because every time we bring him on, we just fuck around and talk about like uni fun days. But I believe we were speaking about Mr. Sway's music. And I remember he was still he plays guitar and he maybe had one song then. Did he have a video like on like Train Tracks?
Yep.
Was that video out then? Did we talk about that?
He didn't talk like so much about like the specifics, but
okay. But I just remember like chilling with Terry back in uni. Like a huge thing was when Terry came to town. Arya would bring his music set up.
Yeah.
And it was freestyling nonstop.
Oh yeah.
That was kind of like we'd get very, very inebriated, get drunk, smoke weed, just cigarettes, cigars, everything. Just get fucked as much as possible and just freestyle nonstop for like 2 hours. Yeah. Like at least I remember those were like awesome times. So I think the conversation probably just centered around his creative process and kind of how he makes music and the goals for that. And what did we actually talk about?
Yeah. No, they're very dead on, and those were great times. Just 6 very intoxicated people in a living room, just hyping the shit out of each other. And
oh god,
honestly, bro, like back then, like those lyrics that we were like freestyling, I thought were genius. Like I was like, oh my god, like what is happening? But great episode. Some key highlights if you guys want to listen back. Terry told a really cool story about how he applied to this what's it called? An acting show called Soul Pepper.
Okay,
and he had a really unique audition.
Pause.
I told you about this when you went to see the play.
Yeah, I was gonna say I have seen a Soul Pepper production in Toronto this year, which is insane. Soul Pepper is legit, like very proper.
Listen to the episode yourselves, but the setup of the story basically goes like, part of this application is you have to define creativity on a canvas. So he went to the actual audition with a blank canvas. So that's the setup of the story, but it's a banger, so I'm just going to let you guys listen to it yourself. But the key takeaway I wrote down there is, money as a means to the end, not an end, because we were talking a lot about creativity and passion. And then another thing is sometimes to be very creative, you need minimal pressure. And like the idea of like, a lot of times people are like, I need to make the perfect product. It kind of really like hinders creativity. Yeah. Whereas if you're able to kind of enter like a flow state where you're kind of just creating, the best result happens. So we were kind of talking about that from different lenses. So cool one.
First off, just quick comments before we move on. Incredible. I do remember that story of Terry with the blank canvas. Yeah. I want to go listen to that episode again just to remember like, what that conversation entailed. But awesome.
Yeah. Episode 3, this was one of my favorite filming wise. This was called The Dating Secret Formula featuring Yacine.
I remember this. This was in the middle. I think, by the way, I feel like for a lot of these episodes, I remember more about like where I was, what I was doing as much as the actual episode. This was in the middle of my exams.
Yeah, your last exams.
My last, like my 5th year final exams Yeah, I think so. Yeah, some of my final exams, some of my last exams in uni, and you motherfuckers came up Like, I think in the last 2 weeks, I just remember I was just like, how am I gonna balance? Okay, wait. Oh, what did I study? Oh, I studied physics. So these were like insane exams to say the least. And I just remember I was very, very happy to have you guys there, but I was like, I didn't think this through because this is like an insane distraction. I remember I had to leave.
Yeah.
I'd leave the house to them and like go into campus just so I could study like all day, like for hours just to be productive. But anyways, I remember the GOAT Yacine.
Yeah.
Yacine taught me so much about dating that I still apply till this day, and that I still share with people like, yo, like I did this in first year, and basically because I did this, like there's just certain things like I don't bother about, and there's certain ways that I like, just approach these things. So I remember we had Yacine come on and he started talking about, I think, had he started like coaching people?
Yeah, he was coaching.
Yeah, he's already coaching, man. Yacine is one of like our awesome friends. He's Algerian, I believe. He went to university with us. Also, great looking guy, French speaking, woman magnet. You know what I mean? And I used to just like get like dating advice from him, and I believe everyone just universally recognized Yacine as a ladies' man, and he decided to profit off of this by like actually coaching men that did not know how to talk to women on how to talk to women. And I was just like, yo, Yacine, like you taught me so much. Like I feel like from your teachings, I share with others, and now you're actually making a business out of this. Come share this with our listeners, our wise guys. And I know like that was kind of the setup of that episode. I don't remember the specifics though.
No, you're right. And you know what? Like that episode, I'll just start off by saying like the actual contents of it was pretty much like we were talking about a lot of like relationship stuff. We were asking about like approach and things like that, and I'll give you the high level stuff, but like really should just be like an episode that you guys listen to. But I do agree, like the context of the episode is so much more important, which was this was the first episode ever that we shot fully in person. So we didn't have a production team. We had no idea about crossover audio. And when I tell you, this was one of the most disastrous episode launches. So what happened was we shot the episode, right? Dolapo, the next day, he had to go study for a full day. And then the day following, that was the exam and the release. And the day like we're supposed to release. No, 2 days after that, we're supposed to release. So Dolapo goes and studies. And then Ari and I are supposed to be cutting this episode. And back then we were cutting on like, I forgot the editing tool. It's a Sony tool.
It's fine. Arya knows it. We'll ask him
anyway,
later.
we were cutting, and so we had basically 5 different audio files to work with. We didn't even evaluate the status of these before we started, and this is why we fucked off. Like we were goofing off that day.
Yeah, you guys made duck.
Yeah, we left. We smoked. We went to downtown. We went to Farm Boy. We bought like a smoked duck breast, and then we cooked it, and then we ate it. We left nothing for D.
Nothing.
He was very upset, and then he was like, how was the episode? And D comes back from like an 8-hour study sesh, like anticipating the episode, ready to listen to. Yeah, so we haven't started cutting it. Man. We go to bed the next day. We evaluate the quality of the audio. I think like midday, and we're like, oh my God, it's horrible. Because there's like crossover audio with everything. On D's mic, you could hear me and Yacine and Arya. So we had to individually look at each clip and try to cut as best as possible everyone else's audio out of each mic. And if you listen to the episode, like the audio is still pretty shoddy. I'll be completely honest. It's probably the worst audio out of all the episodes we've ever done. But it's so insane, like how the process has gone so much better.
So much better.
But the one thing I wrote down from Yacine was, I think before we went into the episode, we were like, well, what is like, how do you become a dating coach? Because like guys are so different, right? Like, how are you supposed to have like a formula? So we were like, so what is the formula? And he actually had one, and the formula was, it starts with you.
Oh, really?
And I was like, that
makes sense.
That makes total sense. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people think about dating as this external thing, but like the main thing he was really pushing is like, shit doesn't happen, you make shit happen, right?
Ooh.
Like you don't just like these things don't just magically occur. But anyway, very interesting episode. Give it a listen. Shout out Yacine. I don't think he does that anymore. He has a full-time super grown job now.
Oh yeah,
from what I understand. But
fuck, I haven't kept in touch with Yacine. I think he's in Montreal now. Right?
He is. Yeah.
We should try and get him on again. We'll see what he's on. Like, we'll create a profile. We'll do the right things. But like, let's see. It'd be great to use this. Yeah, I know we started this pod as a way to engage with each other.
Yep.
But it can turn into a way that we engage with a lot of like super important people that we've met and people in our lives that we might not keep in touch with as much as we
often,
want to
just due to
anymore.
Circumstances.
Yeah. It's incredible.
Cool. So in fourth rank, we have actually the very first episode. It's titled "The Rise of Podcasts, Attention Spans, and Materialism."
I remember I stood on my soapbox to talk about materialism. I don't remember exactly the context, but I remember that was something. This was back when we still had the everybody brings a topic.
Yep.
What's it called? Formula or format. And Arya brought Rise in Podcasts. You brought attention spans, and I was trying to be like, intellectual, and I brought up materialism like an idiot. I think I ended up talking about consumerism and not even materialism. I don't know. I didn't know what I was talking about essentially. Shot in I don't think it was shot in Arya's mom's basement. No, it wasn't. I think it was virtually.
I think this one was maybe.
This one might have been in Arya's mom's basement?
One of the first few was, because I remember we were actually talking about it, because it was like you were upstairs and we weren't moved in together yet.
Yeah, we weren't moved in. But that's about all I remember. I remember whose topic was whose, but I don't remember the details. Give us the key highlights, or what do you? Oh, fuck it, you fucking listen to it. So I don't need to ask what you remember.
We did talk about materialism. We were talking about how kind of like it's actually like kind of bigger in our home countries than even here.
Okay,
because like like in China and in Nigeria and I don't know if Arya talked about Iran that much, but we were talking a lot about China and Nigeria. Like it's a very materialistic place. Like,
absolutely.
In China, it's like if you're going on a date, like the girl will straight up ask you like, how much do you make? Do you have a house? Do you have a car? Right? These are, and that's not like an offensive thing. It's just kind of like,
it's the facts of the matter.
It is. You know what I mean? So there was that, but the thing I wrote down was, and this is a recurring theme throughout the entirety of our podcast, was the very first episode started off with an argument of is Scarborough in Toronto?
Oh, and I remember that.
This is actually brought up a few different times throughout the course of our podcast.
Yeah.
I just thought that was funny. Like we literally right off the bat
I feel like
argued, and then we argued about Scarborough specifically.
Yeah, we've outgrown this. I remember, so like I knew of Toronto like as an international student. Like I was just some context here. I'll make this quick as fuck. International student, obviously I didn't know anything. When I moved here, like what I knew as Toronto was downtown Toronto exclusively. Like all the way from like Spadina or like Union Station and environs. Like didn't know anything past the DVP. Didn't know anything like pre-Bathurst, honestly. Yeah, didn't know anything pre-Bathurst, honestly. So I remember when Luke would tell me he's from Toronto, and I'd be like, where are you from? And he's like, Scarborough. I remember I'd do ride shares, and Scarborough would be like a fucking hour away from the city. And I'm like, true. And like Scarborough does not say Toronto. Scarborough says Scarborough. And I was like, on your postal code, like back then I was like, do you put Scarborough or do you put Toronto? And then Luke would be like, I put Scarborough. Most times, but I can also put Toronto and like whatever. Yeah, and like same thing, I'd say like Scarborough was more like Mississauga and it was not Toronto, because Arya, who's a fucking Mississauga man's, like a Meadowlands guy, also used to say he was from Toronto. And I'm like, yo, like everyone from the GTA and like just anywhere that's like within an hour or 2 hours from Toronto just says they're from Toronto. Even people from Port Hope or people from Barrie would say they're from Toronto. In Ottawa, by the way. Like all the people I went to school with in Ottawa would just be like, they're from Toronto. And I just had this crusade where I was like, no, you're not. Tell me the butt-fuck nowhere city you're from and let me learn more about Canada than me just thinking everywhere in Canada is Toronto. Okay. And yeah, I externalized all of that anger on Luke for probably over a year. So, yeah.
To be clear on this episode, though, and we can ask ChatGPT right now what the original boroughs of Toronto are.
Yes. I know better now.
Scarborough is officially a part of Toronto, but I do get what you mean. Yeah. Culturally, a lot of Torontonians would not claim Scarborough. But also, just to clarify, when you go into Scarborough, it does say welcome to Toronto.
Yeah. I've been to Scarborough a lot more times now. Okay, so what does it say?
Etobicoke, Scarborough, North York.
Wait. The original borough in Toronto was Old Toronto, or City of Toronto, which is kind of where, I believe from.
Okay, so
it's not Bathurst, but like around like Parkdale area, maybe a little bit east of Bathurst. Like, what's it called? Is Liberty Village is east of Bathurst?
I'm not gonna.
Okay, whatever. I'm not gonna draw. I'm not gonna draw. Yeah. And then there was surrounding municipalities like Etobicoke, Scarborough, North York, York, amalgamated into a single-tier megacity in 1998.
Yeah.
So it was in 1998. That's when the megacity of Toronto
But also
became.
the other reason why this is such a sticking point is Mississauga to this day is still not a part of Toronto.
No.
It's its own distinct city. And I think this is a topic that was brought up tons of times because I lived in Scarborough and Aria lived in Mississauga.
And Aria lives, yeah.
And again, I'll tell you this, as someone who lives in Scarborough, I actually think Mississauga, if you were to compare Scarborough to Mississauga is much nicer than Scarborough.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't make that argument, but in a way, it's kind of like, that makes sense, right? It's like, it's its own city. So it's like, it's a little nicer. But anyway, doesn't matter. I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like I thought our first episode was actually really well researched and all that stuff.
Sorry, just for a technicality here, I think Davin has, and we should probably put this on the video. So the GTA is officially the city of Toronto, which includes downtown East York, York, and Etobicoke. So Etobicoke is Toronto technically. Then the Peel region, Mississauga, Brampton, Caledon. Wow, Caledon is part of the GTA. Insane. York region. Vaughan, Markham, Richmond Hill, Newmarket, and Aurora.
It includes King City?
East Gwillimbury, and Georgina. Did not know this.
King City is far.
It's deep. I mean, I guess it is still part of GTA. I imagine there's still a lot of people that live in King City have their businesses in the GTA.
Dude, Scarborough's not even on here.
No, Scarborough's part of Old Toronto, like the mega city.
Oh, Old Toronto. Oh, so this is the entirety of the GTA. It includes Whitby?
Yeah. It includes Whitby. So Durham region, Pickering, Ajax, Whitby, Oshawa, Clarington, and then the Halton region, Oakville, Burlington, Milton, Halton Hills. Insane. So that's technically the GTA.
So I guess you can claim the GTA if you're from
Whitby, I mean, I guess. Like, yeah.
At that point though,
if we're letting Mississauga and Caledon in, you gotta let Whitby in.
Yeah. But they don't have the Toronto. Okay, it doesn't matter. I don't want to get bogged down there. Yeah, we're gonna get bogged down on that again. But good at first episode. Honestly, one of the higher quality ones if you evaluate all 100. But I think the conclusion, rightfully so, after that episode is Scarborough is part of Toronto.
Only from 1998. And I wasn't even born then.
1998.
I wasn't born then, but it wasn't before 1998.
Cool. So episode 5. And funny enough, episode 5 is the 6th ranking. I thought it was the 5th ranking. That could have been nice. It's called Physical and Mental Health with Adam.
Okay. I remember speaking with Adam. This was virtually with Riverside. I remember this. I don't remember what we talked about. I do remember us talking about Adam and his journey.
His ball career?
Yeah, his ball career, going through injuries and how much that affected him.
Yep.
And yeah, I just remember, and I remember this was like I knew of Adam. I probably met him once, like before this episode. But maybe once or twice, like
in larger social settings.
Yeah, in larger social settings, I never had a conversation intimately with Adam. And I remember after this, I was like, "Fuck, such a cool guy, crazy story." And I know now Adam is I call him sexy because he is extremely sexy, and I might be a little bit attracted to him. But yeah, our relationship has blossomed from then. Just to say that. But yeah, give us the details, Luke. What are we talking about?
Exactly as to say, he's had a really wild journey, and the one thing that really stuck out to me in that episode was he was talking about it's kind of just nothing happens by accident, right? He went to Ottawa on a basketball scholarship, but pro athletes, this guy's been training ever since he was 7 or 8.
7, 8, yeah.
And he was always at it every single year, focused in on basketball, had to sacrifice other sports to kind of go all in on that. And that's kind of why he achieved the success he did. unfortunately, ultimately ended up having an injury. But one of the things that he said in the episode that really stuck out to me was he was basically saying like being really good at something does not make you a leader. Like being a leader is different from just being good at a hard skill. And like in like a team, it's really important to have that specific principle, like good leadership abilities, if that makes sense. So,
the best player is not always the leader of the team.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. And then the other thing that stuck out to me, which was crazy, was rent in Ottawa. You were paying $600.
Yeah, I was.
That's nuts, isn't it?
I paid between $550 and $600 for about 3 years in Ottawa.
Absolutely nuts, man.
I pay three times that price now, and I call that cheap.
It is. Like, I went to see my friend, and I was telling you, Bachelor, $2,200.
Yeah, when including utilities, because I think that 600 was maybe I only paid for one utility, like hydro. But yeah, including utilities, for 1 year when I lived alone, I paid 2,200 as well. So like, I was like 4 times, almost 3 to 4 times the amount I was paying in Ottawa. So yeah, insane. Just inflation, kids. It's insane. Well, inflation and quality of living, standard of living. I was also like, I was living a minimum wage life back then. So
but you could back then. Probably now it's harder in Ottawa. But
sure.
Anyway, that interesting episode. I genuinely really like that. Adam actually shared a lot of wisdom there, which I was. In hindsight, it's weird because like our recent memories with Adam were like going to his cottage and getting like drunk. So it's like I listened to that. I was like, oh fuck, like yes, Adam's a super insightful and
thoughtful person.
Anyway,
he's a wise guy.
Yeah, wise guy.
I don't know. Have we ever defined what a wise guy is?
No, we should though. That should be like one of the next things we do.
Yeah, I really quick before we go there, I feel like I just bring that up to say like I feel like a wise guy is someone that's like super deliberate, conscious, relatively responsible, but also a complete degenerate.
Yeah, it's a person that's it's a well-balanced human being.
A well-balanced human being.
You can't have wisdom if you're inexperienced in certain aspects. Right?
Absolutely.
Like, I think that's what kind of defines. And sorry, actually, episode 5 was the 5th ranked episode. Okay. 6th rank is episode 14. It's titled "Porn Additions and Stuff." Clearly a misspelling by me when I published it, but we never went back and fixed it. What do you think this episode was about?
Okay, a couple of things. I remember I was gonna call you out on a couple of episodes on this list of 10. This is the first one that has porn in the title, and obviously there's a typo because fucking Luke's parents did not pay for ESL classes. I'm joking.
They did, dude.
They did. You just fucked around the whole time.
Thank God for autocorrect.
David is here trying to defend his Asian brother, saying typos help engagement. Sure.
I'm preaching this from this point on. Next time my boss tells me I sent an email with a typo.
Does your boss actually tell you this?
I'm not gonna lie. That's one of the things like sometimes the number one piece of feedback I've gone back from my bosses is like, you are an incredibly intelligent person, but somehow like you'll make spelling mistakes like a 5-year-old, and it just makes it's easy for someone to just think you're an idiot.
Yes, no,
right, which is true. But anyway,
I've known Luke. To whoever is from Tia that's watching this, I have known Luke for like 8 years now, and he has always made the dumbest spelling mistakes.
Yeah,
all the time.
Yeah, if we go back to pen and paper, there's a chance like people cannot read what I write.
Like all the time, which is like Luke is so smart, very intelligent person, but like, and the spelling mistakes are not even like you put they instead of the. It's just like something like just completely off kilter. Anyways, but
you give me a long word like cauliflower or something, and the middle is like just a letter salad. It's a letter salad.
You say cauliflower, I instantly burst out laughing because I can't even imagine how you spell that. But
anyway, porn addictions and stuff.
Porn addictions. I think this might have been one of me standing on a soapbox again, saying like porn addictions aren't maybe that bad.
No.
Or no?
Interesting. So I actually brought this topic up because it was this had been like I was having a conversation with one of my buddies, and he was like, especially like during the pandemic, like he's been,
watching a lot of porn,
choking the chicken a lot, blah blah blah, and he's been masturbating a lot, and it's kind of like
You
caused
seem
them
familiar
to,
with that term, David. Choking the chicken, something you know.
it's a common
No,
term.
it's
Let's
not. Okay, all right, continue. All right, I just never heard of it before. It
Yeah,
might be common.
we were talking about like the consumption and like
You
how
think
it
your
can
girlfriend would like choking the chicken?
be choking the chicken.
Yeah.
Probably more than like masturbating. Choking the chicken's a little bit more eloquent, no?
Okay, all right, continue. Sorry, I dive.
Anyway, you can't send
digress.
choking the chicken in a corporate memo, but you could do it in some settings. Anyway, so yeah, we were talking about that, and we were talking about like how like we're talking a little bit about the sensitization as well. But the main thing I think the takeaway there was like mental health is actually really important in sex. Like, you know what I mean? Like a lot of times we talk about like physical connection and like bodies and stuff, but it's like where your head is at is actually probably the most important aspect of sex. And like, that's where desensitization and things like that come into play.
Yeah,
Right.
so it's crazy you bring this up. Obviously we're adults now, and for whoever's listening, if you're young, something to think about. I was talking with one of my cousins, like he's a similar age group, and we've both been in long-term relationships for a minute now.
Yep.
And we're just discussing our sex lives. I'm not going to go into details, but the summary is we
Now you
never
got them interested though.
Huh? No, yeah, I know. But the long story made short is we did not think our sex lives would be where they are now, which is
In like a good way.
no, in a bad way.
In a bad way.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
like just like the interest in sex and like the frequency of sex is probably not what you would think. Like, you know,
Okay.
like I don't know. That was just our experience, and I feel like the conclusion of that conversation between me and him was sex is 80% mental. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like it's 80% in your head. And like, you know, when you're in a long-term relationship and you're with your partner, obviously, yes, like you have a lot of sex, but there's a lot of times where there's just so much other shit going on in your relationship. You're not thinking about sex. And it's not because you don't want to have sex or you don't like, you know, you're not attracted to your partner anymore. It's just, no, we just talked about work. Work is stressing me. Let's watch TV for a bit and fall asleep on each other. And yeah, we haven't had sex for a week now. And yeah, it might seem like something's wrong, but no, nothing's wrong. We just didn't feel like it.
It's
you
like
know?
a different type of connection, but absolutely.
Yeah.
You're definitely right. And
Yeah.
also it's like that person not carries with it the context of other things, but that's part of the reason
Yeah,
as well.
they do. But yeah, interesting.
Anyway, cool. And then the next episode is actually the only episode out that we filmed recently in the top 10, episode 95. This was before the relaunch. And it's also related to porn. It's called Porn is Social Media, but for sex.
Okay, see, so this is where I'm going to call you out.
Yeah.
All right, so for the viewers, I'm going to go behind the fourth wall here. Like Luke said, I am taking a little bit more responsibility in the podcast, but for the most part, Luke, Arya, and now Davin do like 90% of the work, okay? And the Luke's...
This was before the relaunch.
Yeah, this was
Gavin
before the
wasn't
relaunch.
involved in
Okay,
this
so
episode, yeah.
okay, so basically at this point, Luke and Arya were doing 99% of the work, and all I had to do was show up.
Yeah.
And I only bring this up to say everything that has to do with captioning our podcasts and determining the titles, like, was squarely Luke's responsibility.
It was, yeah.
And so the fact that we have so many, I believe 3 of our episodes, which is by far the most, in terms of consistent titles, having porn as the first word. You guys probably just saw spit fly there, but that's fine.
It's 2 episodes. It's 2 episodes.
I think it's 3. 2?
It's 2.
Okay, okay.
Unless you say there's one coming up that's kind of related to it.
Yes. I feel like, well, how do you know it's related to it? From the title?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, there we go.
You're right. There were repeats. There were themes. There were themes.
Squarely put that on your shoulders, okay?
Absolutely.
And also, I'm making a promise going forward, we will stop talking about porn this much, okay? Like we just, it shouldn't be that, it's not that important a topic, okay? Like
it is and it isn't, right? Like it is an important topic.
So clearly you understand why Luke keeps captioning these episodes.
Well, man, like, okay, I don't want to get into the details.
Let's not get into it.
Why I think it's an important topic, but I get you. Like, I don't know. I think it gets clicks, right? Like, there's a reason why 2 of the top 10. Like, let's see.
All right.
You know what I mean? Like,
okay. All right.
Anyway,
we can be more creative, is all I'm trying to say. And I will personally put an effort to this.
Yeah. Anyway. What do you think we talked about that episode?
Porn as being the social media for sex. I'm just repeating the title in a different way. I think we're just talking about like how bad porn. Oh, choking the chicken.
Yeah,
That's
how
what we're
bad
talking
choking the
about.
chicken is.
How bad is choking the chicken really?
I think the main theme there was like similarly how social media is like
Addictive and
no, social media is like a spruced up version of life.
okay.
Porn is kind of like a spruced up version of sex, and it's not the same
Great,
thing.
great,
You know what I
great.
mean? And the
Okay.
things that you look for in porn is not the same thing you look for in sex. You know what I
Absolutely,
mean? But
absolutely.
the actual takeaway was you actually brought up this topic, which is preparing versus preventing, like preparing for a worst case scenario
Okay.
versus preventing a worst case scenario. I know we kind of went back and forth on there, and then
I
the
used some
conclusion.
crazy analogies. I
Yeah,
remember.
you did. So you should listen to this episode specifically
I
because
remember.
Dolapo goes into a 10-minute analogy about how preparing versus
pizza.
preventing,
Yeah.
and he gave the example of making a frozen pizza.
Yeah.
And it might shock you how a person is capable of carrying on the topic of making a frozen pizza for like fucking 10 minutes.
Hey, okay. I'm just gonna summarize it and tell you the analogy was 10 out of 10. It might have dragged on for a little bit too long, but it was a 10 out of 10. You make a frozen pizza, there's two types of people.
Yeah.
There's the people that look at the instructions and follow it to the T, set up a timer, do the exact stuff. And then there's some other people that are like, I know how to make a pizza. And they just throw it in the oven and they check the oven like 5 times and they add their own stuff there. They make it their own and they never even look at the box. They don't need the box. And those are just two different types of people. And I was saying the person that doesn't look at the box and kind of just makes things on the fly is someone that most likely prepares for a worst case scenario.
Yep.
And the person that reads a box and goes through, follows the instruction to the exact T is the kind of person that would prevent a worst case scenario. But it lasted for 10 minutes.
All this to say, Dolapo has gone much better at being eloquent
Yes,
since
I have.
that episode. But please,
That was like 1 minute. No.
yeah, it was an incredibly entertaining episode. That's all I'll say.
Okay.
Next one. So we're getting to the bottom 3 now.
Okay.
Seasons versus COVID, friendships, and whiskey.
Seasons versus COVID. Were we talking about seasonal depression here?
A little bit. It was getting close to the summer, which is
Okay.
why we started to talk about this topic.
Okay, I don't know. And then you said, okay, go again. Seasons versus COVID and what?
Friendships and whiskey. It was around the time of your birthday as well. I don't know if that jogs up any memories.
Was this the birthday that we did, Dave?
No.
Okay, I don't remember this. Just give us the key highlights. I'm blanking here.
So we were just talking about how it was basically a year into COVID and how because we were in lockdown and stuff, it's kind of blurred some of the seasons a little bit. But then you were kind of making the argument that because of lockdown, people are going to go overcompensate and kind of do even more, because we were basically talking about hot girl summer or whatever. We were like, is that going to happen this year with COVID? Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, doesn't matter. The actual thing we were talking about more is friendships. And I think the key conclusion there is friendships take many different forms.
Okay.
They can evolve, they can be different, and they're all valid. That was kind of.
And how did whiskey get in there?
Oh, the whiskey thing was, we were just saying as 3 guys, we all like to drink whiskey, but whiskey's a really unpopular spirit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Fair.
But then I think since then I realized that was just the specific group we were hanging out with.
Yeah, no,
You know what
whiskey
I mean?
is super popular.
People like whiskey.
Yeah.
It's just back then in our friend group, we would only.
Yeah,
ones that
not
would
many
drink whiskey.
university kids are drinking whiskey. It's
Yeah.
more tequila and vodka.
Exactly. Now that we're in the corporate world, people are fucking
Yeah,
asking for $300 bottles of whiskey,
Exactly.
and it's and then the second to last of the top 10. What is family? Compliments and is evil evil?
So what is family? I don't remember.
And this is one I actually want to stick on for a little bit. After
Okay,
you go into
compliments. I remember this was I talking about how I don't I prefer taking compliments from strangers than my friends.
Yep.
I remember that became a huge thing, and I still do. So that's an opinion I still stand by.
I'm
But,
closer to you on that one now.
Yeah,
actually.
and then what was the last one? Sorry.
Is evil evil?
Okay, that also sounds like some dumb thing I was saying. Evil could actually be good or something like that. But give us the details and tell us.
So the evil topic that was kind of that was more along the lines of history is written by the victors. So it's evil is relative. It depends on the
Whether
perspective.
you win or not.
Yeah, in a way, but it was more to do like it depends on which lens you're viewing it from, right? Because someone could do something evil to a group of people, but it could actually benefit another group of people.
Okay,
and
fair.
to that group of people, they're not going to see that act
As
as evil,
evil.
right? Anyway, but
Look at us talking about super nuanced topics.
I know this was episode 6, by the way, and
Like,
then you
geez.
look at episode like
great example here, Robin Hood. Robin Hood was a thief.
Yeah, he
to
was
a group of
probably
people.
evil to the king.
Yeah, it was absolute. No, not probably. He
was,
was. He was evil to the king, and he was the hero of the little people. So yeah. That's a wow. Look at us range.
Yeah, it's actually genuine. Like that's the other thing I made a note of. I was like, one, I'm kind of ashamed of how abrasive I was. I was like, in the early episodes, I cringed when I listened to this, but like there were like a couple of times where I was just like, "Fuck you," and I was like, "Why did I say that? Like what?" And then
Luke, you still do that.
I do.
Only when we like get in intense arguments. But back then, all of our intense arguments happened on the pod.
Yeah, it just like anyway. I'm ashamed of that.
I love you.
Another one was the earlier episodes seemed to be super intellectual and eloquent, and then as time went on, we started being like, "Is this rap song trash?" Like
damn.
And then the last thing was like, I have no new examples. I used the term "biting down on the mouth guard" in the very first episode, and that's something I used like probably a few episodes ago. I have no new analogies. Anyway, the one thing I actually wanted to ask you about in this episode, and sorry, I think we're gonna go a little bit over time, but I think this is important to touch upon because I think it's interesting how people grow over time, right? And like back then, this topic was one of the topics where me and Ario were really like questioning you about your view on relationships in general, not even romantically. And the topic we were
I
talking
think I was
about
saying it was
there-
more transactional. Right?
Yeah, we were talking about what is family, right? And you were kind of giving the perspective where you were like, well, to me, it's not about relationships, it's about loyalty. And there isn't really a commitment attached to loyalty. Like, and then you were kind of explaining like, if I'm going to be committed to someone, there's always like kind of like a time limit on it, even whether or not we know it or not, right?
True.
Sort of thing. So like, I guess just like over the, like, how has that perspective, has it changed? Has it evolved? Like, what is that like now, right? Because obviously you're in a long-term relationship now.
Fuck,
like,
yeah.
that you back then might think of that as pretty crazy. You know what I mean? And like, it's one of those things where like, I feel like, you know, that's a very interesting opinion, right? Like it's valid in a lot of ways, but.
Wow. I like you say that and you bring in like that specific example and I just got a wave of like memories and like thoughts and insane because yes, I do remember it was kind of like a whole thing where I was just like I one of my biggest fears is a fear of commitment just because I don't, and it's about me just being able to be consistent over an extremely long period of time. That's not something that I always want to be able to hold myself to. I want to be able to be dynamic and change my relationship and adjust it higher or lower, just be different, you know, as time goes on. And back then, I couldn't see myself being in a 2-year relationship with a woman as well. Like, I thought I was going to be single for life. So I was like, yeah, if I'm going to be in anything long-term with anybody, I just have to know implicitly that we're going to be loyal to each other. And like, it's not, oh, I want to be committed to you because like I said, commitment comes with like an expiry date that's implicit, even if we don't like both acknowledge it. I think to an extent, it's still true. However, I do want to modify this a little bit in terms of like my view on commitment. You can be committed to somebody long-term. I just personally, like, I feel like now that I've gone through it and now that I know I am capable and I've been capable, I feel like it is something you have to make a conscious decision to want to do. However, I do want to add that I think growing together is how you become committed to someone, whether you plan on being committed to someone or not. Like, yes, being intentional about wanting to commit to the person is very important. But I think if you just have someone and both of you are able to grow together, then like you just become committed to each other and there is some sense of loyalty. Loyalty gets introduced when you go through things together. I'll give an example, right? I was speaking to Ari about this and one of the things I love about our relationship, and I think this podcast this 100 episode, like, like exemplifies really well is how much we've been able to grow together.
Yep.
Like all the way from me being like a first year Eng student that didn't know anything, to me being a physics student, to me starting like, like a job, to me getting like a better job, to me living alone, to me living with my sister, to me living with you guys. Like I have grown so much, and you guys have been there to see every part of that, and that gives me an implicit loyalty to you guys, because you guys have seen me in like different stages of my life, and like I respect that, and you guys kind of know what it took to transform, and so that bond was built. There's like a kind of commitment and loyalty built where I know that we talk out and we're like, oh, it's gonna be for life. Like it's not something like we think about. It's not something I really need to say out loud. I just feel like when I'm 50 years old, like the ages between 17 and 25, like I know the people that were there with me throughout, and we will always have that, right? And I think this is also similar with going through traumas together. So I think that's what happened in my relationship, where I had a polyp that could have been cancerous, like early in my relationship, and my girlfriend like went through that with me. Do you know what I mean? And that was some shared trauma that like I know who was like, normally it'd be your mom or your sister that's there with you. Like if you think about it, your parents were there with you through so many traumatic things, and that's why the relationship with your parents will always be there. But like when you're forming relationships with people that you didn't grow up with, I feel like, that's kind of like how that relationship evolves to being like a committed relationship. And at least in having a relationship with my girlfriend, not only saying like, we've what do they call them? Trauma bond. Not only saying we've trauma bonded, because trauma bonding is important, okay? Because everyone goes through trauma, and you do need someone to go through your trauma with, like, like that's okay with doing it, because don't trauma dump. Oh, look at this. I'm so Gen Z with all these like labels and words. Yeah, shout out to all the women in my life that are putting me on game. You don't want a trauma dump, you want a trauma bond, so it's consensual. And that's great. But also importantly, within my relationship as well, my girlfriend and I have also grown together. Like I met her when I lived in a different place with a different job. Similar with her, she lived in a different city with a different job. And now we've grown, better jobs, better homes, better cities, whatever. So yeah, I don't know. That's just kind of how I still think, but like I've evolved it to there's certain things, like to be committed with someone is not just, oh, I'm gonna be committed to you. No, there's things you have to go through together. You could be intentional in being like, yeah, you're someone I want to have with me through the bad times and the good times, and because of that person will be there. But I think there's a decent amount of times where some people are just there with you during those times, and that relationship just ends up building with those people. And I feel like that's just a way I know that I can make relationships last longer now. I don't know. I
The
talked
growing
for like
together,
5 minutes.
I think, is very palatable as like the main thing there, just because it's like, if a relationship is very stagnant, then commitment is scary.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, I'm not ready to just have this version of you for the rest of my life. But over the last few years, because you've been able to grow as well, you see the ability of other people to grow.
Yeah.
And that when you actually have others beside you, the growth can be guided and maybe exemplified. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The last in the top 10
Did you want to add anything? I'm sorry. I kind of just choked on that.
No, that was
topic.
exactly it. Because I thought it was interesting. Because like I kind of wanted to like segue that almost to the closing of this. The last episode was the one we did with Everthink. It was episode 27. Really long episode where we talked about a bunch of different things. Everthink, very chill guy. I believe his name is Will, and he's also no longer kicking. Everthink is no longer kicking around.
Damn, look at us.
I think
like, first
they
off,
actually took down all their episodes because I was actually trying to find it and I couldn't find
really
our episode where we were on their podcast. But anyway, doesn't really matter. And he had really good production. Like honestly, his set was probably this nice, if not more, because he had a sign.
Maybe a little better. Yeah,
he had a sign as well.
He did have a sign.
And that was like back then.
Yeah.
But I think over the past 100 episodes, we've had like, I've personally had different thoughts of like, why are we doing a podcast and like, what is this for? And you said, like, you rightfully said, like, when we started this, we did this because we wanted to keep in touch. It was the pandemic. We were building out a much bigger project. This was one ecosystem in the project. And this is the one that we've kept steady with, right?
Yeah.
But I think the one thing that has become very like clear in the past 100 episodes is like, I don't really think there's like a podcast like ours where you're going to see like this much growth in real time. I think like it doesn't really exist because this is not a finished product by any means, right? Like
far from it.
Like just as we kind of talked about, like throughout this podcast, there's been breakups and new jobs and career transitions and, you know, degree transitions, and we try to keep it very raw with you guys. And like in a way, it's like it kind of feels like we're growing with each other, but hopefully you guys feel like you're growing with us as well. And like I hope you guys can also use this episode kind of as a retrospective, you know, like think about last couple of years, everything you've done, all the mistakes. And, you know, I'm a little bit ashamed sometimes about some of the things I've said and some of the like, you know, temperaments I've had, but honestly,
I'm
like
tearing up right now.
it is,
sorry,
you know,
ahead.
but genuinely, like it's genuinely like a showcase of our maturity and growth, right? Like, and this is not the end of the journey. This is just one milestone 100, right?
No, yeah, I think just extremely important. Let me get this mic a little closer. No, you're spot on, Luke. There's a lot of things I've said as well I am not proud of. I think there's an episode where I was talking in a good light about heroin, which I regret.
I think it was backed by this, like, there was like that PhD guy who was
foolishness
doing it. But
yeah,
anyway.
it's foolishness on my part. And like, there's a lot of things. I know I was making a joke about you figure out which I don't stand by and which I do. Yeah. Like if you don't, like, there's a lot of bullshit being said, but also I'm just really, really happy that we were able to record a decent amount of these because it's like a snapshot in time of like who we are. And like, obviously, like I don't like taking pictures, you guys know. But like, I was even extremely nervous about recording this just because I was like, I'm going to say a lot of stupid things and I'm going to sound stupid. And I don't know how open I am to putting that in the public. Well, thankfully no one ever listened. But now that we're growing and, you know, now that like we're becoming a lot more mature, I feel like I'm recognizing the importance and the significance of what we're doing with this podcast a little bit more for ourselves and like our fans. Like I've been talking about, this is like a coming of age podcast, and it truly is in terms of you guys as our viewers. Like if you want to be a part of this journey with us, you can literally see and watch us grow. And we're hoping to like involve you guys a lot more and like see and watch you guys grow and learn more about that. But some of the commitments like I will be making going forward from episode 100 and above, like, yeah, my drug use has significantly reduced. And so I was speaking a lot less about drugs, a lot less about porn. And honestly, like, I'm thoroughly impressed with some of these topics that you brought up. Is evil really evil? Talking about super nuanced relative perspectives. Like, we don't do any of that stuff anymore. So
I guess a bit too bogged down now. You know, we'll get back to it.
Yeah, but like, you know, just bringing super, like, you know, like just engaging our curiosity. You know, like, and getting us back thinking, because like we are wise guys at the end of the day. We do have that capacity, right? So yeah, like, I don't know. I've really enjoyed this. I didn't think I'd like this episode as much as I did, but it's just been funny, like hearing some of these and having the really vivid memories of some of our guests and kind of where I was and where you were and where Arya was, and you know, and in some of these points in time, and just being able to relate that to where we are right now. It's been an incredible journey, and I'm excited for the future. So yeah,
and you know what? I'll say this: if this podcast continues to a extremely large size, expect that these first 100 episodes will eventually be archived and only available on Patreon.
Facts.
Because I do not want that shit to be out there.
That is
so. Take advantage
awesome
now
idea.
And go and listen to them now, because I promise you, by the time I am like 29, 30, I do not like episode 14 or some of these.
I love
there.
it.
Like,
David is so excited. David's like our exec producer, him and Arya. He's like, that is 1,000% happening.
I do not want that out there. But,
oh, jeez. Yeah. Also, one last concluding thought. Like, shout out to the three wise guys, like Davin included, because we wouldn't. I know, like, we stopped for like 8 months, and like Gavin, I don't know if you know this, but you were like the pushing force for us to start this again, because there were legit conversations about, like, what's the point? Like, we haven't done this for a year. And I remember I gave Arya an ultimatum. I was like, if we don't do this for a year, I am not coming back to do this. And we beat the year deadline. I think we stopped August last year. We recorded the first practice episode again in June. Yep. And you were a big part of that. So all of this to say, like,
damn, that's crazy.
Like, yeah, no, he is. was and is going forward. Like, shout out to you, shout out to Arya, shout out to Davin, shout out to all our guests, Adam, Chick Chat, everything, everybody, because we wouldn't have done 100 episodes without you guys. And it's a little sad to think that a lot of these other podcasts that we collaborated with, don't exist anymore. But I am just glad that we are here. And I'm glad that we continue and plan to continue to be here. So yeah, stay tuned to all the cool shit we have coming up and going forward. And we hope to involve you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys keep us accountable. And I think the main mission from episode 100 onwards is just providing more value to you guys. So
yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Kevin Spacey next episode.
Yeah. We're back with Kevin Spacey.
Aria will be back.
Yeah.
He is in the air at the moment.
We wish him best of luck in SF where he is. But yeah, at the end, Arya usually does this, but I guess I'll co-opt it because I think Luke forgot, but whatever. So, one love, people.
One love.
Mwah.